I'm Ramiro Oblitas. I'm the creative director of ACNE, the brand department here. I started off being interested in what I do since college, or back in the days probably, when the way of identifying myself, not being Swedish but living in Sweden. I was born in Bolivia, in La Paz. So that kind of made me curious of how you can identify yourself to your surrounding, basically. So I started off doing a lot of visual stuff when back in school already, doing catalogs for the school, doing the t-shirts, the tote bags for my colleagues. And then I ventured into doing graphic design here in Stockholm. So I was trained at two different art schools here. One is called Bergs, and one is called Forsbergs. By coincidence, I met a friend who applied for a course in Bachelor of Graphic Design at St. Martin's in London. So I followed him. And then I went there for 3 years, and it was fantastic. It was great to swap the Scandinavian mind of doing things to, I would say, probably something much more global, and having friends of different origins. So after doing my graduate in graphic design, I started working. I got a job offer, which I couldn't refuse. I was only planning to be there for 3 years, but I stayed for over a decade, so almost 13 years in London. And then that took me to another venture as well. I went to New York. I had a sabbatical. I went to New York for a year. I went to Brazil for a year for a sabbatical again. And then I ended up going back to London again and seeing all my friends. No one was left, kind of. It was kind of this 3-year period, when you meet someone who's there for 3 years of a stint, and then they move back. You meet another person for 3 years, and they go back. And for some reason I was still, happy, being in London. But I think it's more of London's like a bus stop, a station. People come and go. So I think I made my full circle, and I had to move and change of environment basically, and have some challenges in front of me that was needed, So I moved to Barcelona, and I was there for 3 years. 2.5, and then I met my fiancée, and one led to another. Stockholm became utopian. I had to move to Stockholm to see how it really was, because it was such a long time ago. I was living in Sweden, in Stockholm in specific. So yeah, I moved back to Stockholm to see what things were, how they were, and job offers were coming in. So I ended up starting off my business in Barcelona actually, but I continued to do that here in Stockholm. So Parasol was basically initiated by myself and my co-founder then, called Saul Taylor, one of the co-founding editors of Monocle magazine. We ended up getting commissions when we were living in Barcelona. So again, one thing led to another. I started doing that. The years passed by. I had a son, Saul had a son, me here in Stockholm, he in Barcelona. And then we grew with the team as well, as we did with the years. We onboarded a strategy director called Victor Avellan, one of the founding members of Apartamento magazine. He was in New York, Saul in Barcelona, me in Stockholm. And then, time were running smoothly, basically. And, things are different here in Sweden from London. I would say Stockholm is very different from London in the way of how you get commissions. I would probably say in London you get commissions based on creative height, and here in Stockholm you get commissions based on safety. So there are two very different aspects of how you can get commissions from brands, basically. And so it was different, and I had some time to adjust myself to get my Rolodex up to date here when back in Sweden. And so here we are today. I got approached by ACNE almost 2 years ago. There was a need to build up the creative team, the design team here in ACNE. And then I thought that was a challenge I couldn't refuse. There was a big phase in ACNE being acquired by Deloitte a couple of years ago that I wanted to be a part of. So there was no ego in keeping Parasol still alive and kicking, but rather having the challenge of being in an environment with people who did things that I didn't. So yeah, I've been here for a year and a half almost. We are opening up new businesses around the world with 7 or 6 studios in Europe last year. We are opening up another one shortly and another one after the summer as well. So it's not to grow just by growing. It's I think there is a really good understanding right now at ACNE, which we probably didn't have a couple of years back, where there are there's a business opportunity to really coordinate the 3 offerings that we have, which is advertising, branding, and content. So with those 3 legs, I think we can really, together with Deloitte, offer full service creative solutions that not only transform businesses from business strategy with Deloitte in our backs, but also by connecting people to body and mind. So yeah. ACNE was initiated in '96, so we've been around for a long time. Purely based on, I would say, design projects, self-initiated projects from the very beginning. We did everything from TV graphics, games, we did music instruments, we did a lot of interesting art collaborations, but then we also did a clothing line, which was really based on jeans at that time. And that evolved a lot. Today, there is probably most known for ACNE Studios, which is a different part of ACNE, the ACNE family. But it's always been a collective of thinkers, makers, and doers, basically. So it has been it has been grounded in a lot of communication, which is basically advertising, where we have been doing that for 20 plus years, working for political parties to consumer goods to lifestyle and fashion and so on, cultural stuff as well. So the ACNE collective have always been grounded in creativity, and we have a saying of art meets industry, and that kind of resonates really well now when we have been acquired by Deloitte, which can inject a lot of technical data and analysis to our offer, which we couldn't have done or cope with before. So in that sense, today we're saying we are creative consultancy. So creativity comes from what we have done before, consultancy from the Deloitte side of things, of business, which is it's a nice combination, we think. When it comes to sustainability, there is that's a huge advantage now, I think, with Deloitte in helping us get insights which we wouldn't have before. So we can get access to C-suite completely directly with them now, and also transform businesses from the inside out. So sometimes there is an aspect of, sure, if we're smaller, we can probably make less damage to the environment. But if we are bigger, we can probably rethink the core idea of their businesses from the very beginning. And together with Deloitte, we can probably do that, and we have done so far, which is fantastic as well. It requires a lot of dialogue and conversations, but it's not about making things pretty anymore. It's about making them transform internally first, culturally, but then also how you emphasize on what you do becoming much more, fruitful and good for people and planet. We can have projects that are small scale, like startups, where the branding layer is very prominent when we actually talk about colors, typefaces, and so forth. And then we have probably the medium scale projects that are based on strategy as well, where you're basically telling the client why they're putting their money in, and why we're doing things, because we're not artists. We do things for other people. It's problem solving. And then we have the larger projects, which are very business focused for sure. You know, it goes hand in hand with strategy, but also in creative execution. But it's always about, you know, how you can make people feel something for that specific product. So if it's not well executed, then the strategy falls down, you know, flat. And for the consultancy aspect, this is kind of the same thing. You know, we need to make the strategy and the positioning and all those really essential bits to make people feel something. And sometimes, obviously, when it's very hardcore business strategy, where you probably wouldn't see any graphic output whatsoever, it's just, you know, it's just facts and figures, and then you probably you try to maybe make them, you give them tools to sell things internally because there's a lot of decision being made before you do something in the big scale. But we're not doing that much that often. But the house in itself, the collective, would probably do that much more than just our specific department. So I think it's crucial to define, I'm representing the brand side of ACNE, not the whole house. You know, when I talk about Deloitte and stuff, but you know, I will be invited to sit around the table when there are, when there is a brand opportunity discussion, then I can navigate through that much better. But it goes hand in hand. Again, having said that, you know, more of the things are so integrated today. So we can do, you know, a brand positioning for a new we're doing for example, right now we're doing a big, massive rebranding of a city here in Sweden, or close to Stockholm, where we actually are really thinking about business strategy. You know, how are you going to be catering people to move back to this spot and have businesses to move there, and you know, how can you facilitate a whole new sort of a proposition for that spot? So there is obviously not just branding involved, but that becomes something really important as well for people to identify themselves by, you know, wanting to be taking place of that specific area. So it's like everything comes to its place when it's needed, so to speak. But you know, having had a smaller venture before, you probably wouldn't have even been invited to be doing that sort of a thing. Or you would have been, but then it would probably just be to make it, you know, look, you know, this way, or you know. But this is much more business oriented, and then it's kind of like also it's interesting to, you know, to sit and try to make, you know, the PowerPoint, you know, sexy somehow. Because in the end, you can be very analytic and business orientated, but in the end, you know, no one is going to read those piles of you know, facts. So you need to make people engage in it somehow, and that's where we come in, because we can make that come alive. It's a very good point, and I would probably question it as you are. I think somehow being in the COVID, in the middle of it, or God knows for how long we're going to be in this, it is a culture that we need to rebuild, because we're not seeing each other anymore. And the studio mentality, when it comes to graphic design and branding and so forth, it is about, you know, touching and, you know, seeing each other and having a common goal, so to speak. So for us, obviously, you know, being closely, you know, together is so essential. I mean, we can do things by video, but it's not the same thing. And having, you know, X amount of square feet doesn't make the culture even flourish. I mean, it's not about that. I think it's about finding, you know, reinventing your vision or your goals and your ambitions. I think that's super important. Even if you're just 3 people working in Shoreditch, or if you're, you know, a much bigger context-based, you know, agency, people want to know why they go to work. So it's kind of the same. But then also, of course, we're not that big. I mean, we're 200 people-esque spread out. And here in Stockholm, we are 60-ish. And that's the whole, you know, the collective. But my department, we are 5 people right now. So what we can do is we can be very personal, small scale, fast moving partner if you want. But then we can connect everyone if we need to, you know, pitch for the Olympics, you know. So You know, if we would say, let's continue with our self-initiated heritage, who knows, we can open up hospitality projects, hotels under the ACNE umbrella in Asia if we want. But, you know, it's about having, you know, not just, you know, finding a way of thinking about how things used to be, but finding a way of, you know, how things could be. So I think it's about iterating who you are all the time. So sometimes people are saying, this is our process, and I would say the process is bespokely done for every project because we don't know what the parameters are. Sometimes they will feel much more safe and feel trust if we are, you know, always answering the phone 24/7. And some people or clients don't really care. They just want to have something really well executed. So it really depends. And by being so, if needed, very small-handed like we are, we can attract people who want to be very personal, you know. So, like you probably know yourself, I mean, we have the luxury of being in a brewery with, you know, people who are, you know, really focused on what they do, or we can be in a very large context by, you know, like I just said, reshaping a space of the city with lots of different stakeholders. So I think the environment of being able to scale up, if you need to, is interesting. For maybe for someone who's a graduate who don't really know what they want to do. Here they can try to, you know, see a campaign being executed from brief to sketches to storyboarding to being on set and filming something, or they can be with you know, someone who is doing a social media content plan for IKEA on, you know, for a year or two onwards. So I think there's a nice, it's like school, it's like college, it's like, I know I sometimes think that I'm learning every day. I will never say that I'm fully, you know, that I know everything. But if I see even the mistakes, even the failure as something that it's, you know, is something of a learning curve, then it's just fun, you know. So I'm not sure if I can make an impact, and this is my personal opinion, by being, you know, in a team of 5 people and just working maybe for cultural projects or institutions. I'm not sure if my impact on people and planet would be more than if I would have been in an environment where I'm now, where we can actually really do transform businesses for real. So I think that's, you know, it's just my humble opinion on you know, that sort of a scenario of things. But it's, of course, sometimes you just want to do something that, you know, you can just put your headphones on and just do what you want to do. But in my position, it's more about leadership. So it's more about seeing the overview of things rather than seeing my face really close to the mirror and seeing all the wrinkles that I've got. You know, it's more about, you know, what's the big picture.
Okay.